This happened 4 years ago, and I still think about it every Christmas. It was late Christmas night, somewhere after 10, and my family was driving home from one of those overpriced restaurants my parents only went to once a year. Everyone else in the car was exhausted. My mom leaned against the window, half asleep, my brother had earbuds in, and my little sister wouldn't stop whining about how her best friend forgot to get her a gift. I was 14 at the time, wide awake, watching the minutes crawl by on the dashboard clock. The 45-minute drive felt endless. About 20 minutes in, my dad pulled into a gas station just off the highway. He said he needed cigarettes. My mom, brother, and sister all got out to use the restroom. I stayed behind, scrolling on my phone, enjoying the quiet for once. 10 minutes passed, then another few. I remember checking the time again, irritated, wondering what could possibly be taking them so long. That's when I looked up. There was a man standing near the edge of the lot, just outside the circle of light from the gas station canopy. At first, I thought he was just waiting for someone. Then I realized he was staring directly at our car. I don't know how long he'd been there. His face was hard to make out in the dark, but what I could see felt wrong. No expression, no curiosity, just empty. He looked average, maybe mid-40s, around 5'9", wearing a dark jacket, but something about the way he stood made my stomach tighten. When he noticed me looking back, his head tilted slightly. Then he started walking toward the car. Slowly. My heart started hammering. I locked the doors without thinking. I remember telling myself I was overreacting, that it was a public place, that nothing ever happens at gas stations like this. Then my dad came back, arguing with the cashier under his breath. The rest of my family piled in behind him. The man stopped walking. As we pulled out, I looked back one last time. The man was still standing there, but now his face had changed. He looked annoyed, like we'd interrupted something. The rest of the drive home, I stayed quiet. Later that night, everyone else was asleep. A storm rolled in, heavy rain, wind rattling the house. I was lying in bed watching YouTube, enjoying the sound of the rain against the roof, when something slammed into my window behind me. Hard. I jumped so badly I almost fell off the bed. My first thought was a bird, maybe a branch. I pulled the blinds back just enough to look. A man was standing in the driveway near my parents' cars, looking up at my window. Even before the lightning flashed, I knew it was him. Same height, same jacket, same empty posture. When thunder lit up the yard, I saw his face clearly for the first time. He was smiling. Not wide, not exaggerated, just enough to let me know he recognized me. I screamed. I don't remember stopping. My dad burst into the room, swearing, demanding to know what was wrong. I barely got the words out. He grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. They arrived about 10 minutes later. The man was found hiding in our shed. He didn't resist, didn't say much, just kept staring. The next morning, my dad checked the house. The back door handle was damaged, twisted, bent inward, but not broken, like someone had stopped just short of forcing it open. The police told us he'd probably followed us from the gas station. Probably. What they never explained, and what still keeps me awake some nights, is how he knew which room was mine.
I don't tell this story at family gatherings anymore. Not because anyone told me to stop, but because the room always goes quiet when I reach the end. This happened on Christmas Eve 3 years ago in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. Nothing about that night felt unusual at first. Snow was coming down lightly, the kind that sticks to your coat but melts before it hits the ground. My parents were hosting Christmas at their place, so my wife and I drove over around 7 p.m. with gifts in the trunk and coffee to keep us awake. By 10, the house was loud with laughter, football on TV, and the smell of ham and cinnamon candles. Normal, safe, the kind of night you don't expect to remember forever. Around 11, my mom asked if I could take the trash out back. The bins were near the detached garage, past the edge of the porch light. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, letting the door shut behind me. That's when I noticed the footprints. They came from the tree line at the back of the yard, fresh, deep impressions in the snow, adult-sized boots, not animal tracks, not old either. They led straight toward the house and stopped just short of the garage. I remember standing there longer than I should have, listening. No wind, no cars, just the faint sound of music leaking from inside. I took the trash back in and told myself it was probably a neighbor cutting through the yard. Still, I locked the back door without mentioning it to anyone. Later that night, after gifts were opened and people started heading home, my mom handed out leftovers. As we were getting ready to leave, my mom frowned and pointed toward the living room. "There was one more present," she said. "Did someone already take it?" None of us knew what she was talking about. Under the tree, tucked behind the bigger boxes, was a small gift wrapped in brown paper. No tag, no name, just a red ribbon tied neatly around it. Everyone assumed it was a mix-up, maybe an extra gift that got forgotten. My mom joked that it must be for whoever was on Santa's nice list the longest. For reasons I still can't explain, she handed it to me. I didn't open it there. I took it home. It sat on our kitchen table all night. The next morning, Christmas Day, I unwrapped it. Inside was an old digital photo frame, scratched plastic, outdated model, no brand I recognized, no memory card slot either. When I plugged it in, the screen lit up immediately. It wasn't photos, it was video. Grainy, black and white footage of my parents' backyard. The angle was low, partially blocked by tall grass. At first, I didn't recognize it. Then I saw myself. It showed me the night before, walking out with the trash, stopping, staring into the darkness. The timestamp in the corner read December 24, 11:06 p.m. I felt cold all over. The video kept playing. After I went back inside, the camera didn't turn off. It stayed fixed on the yard. Minutes later, someone stepped into frame. A man in a heavy coat, gloves, boots that matched the footprints. He stood exactly where the tracks had ended, close enough to the house to touch it. He looked straight into the camera, then slowly raised his finger to his lips. The video ended. I drove back to my parents' house immediately. The footprints were gone. Snow had covered everything. The police said there was no sign of forced entry. No cameras caught anything. They asked who could have placed the gift there. I didn't have an answer. What I still don't understand, and what keeps me awake every Christmas Eve, is this. If the camera was outside the whole time, who brought the gift inside and placed it under the tree?
I used to believe this was just a coincidence, a misunderstanding mixed with bad timing and a tired mind on Christmas Eve. That explanation worked for a long time, until it stopped working. This happened 7 years ago, when I was 27, living alone in a duplex on the outskirts of Des Moines, Iowa. The place was nothing special. Beige siding, shared driveway, thin walls. My neighbor lived on the other side. His name was Ron. Ron was older, maybe late 60s, quiet, always polite. He waved when he saw me, sometimes held the door if our schedules lined up. He wore the same brown coat every winter and drove an old sedan that always smelled faintly like oil. We never talked much, but he was familiar, safe. That Christmas Eve, I stayed up late. I didn't have family nearby and work was closed, so I planned to sleep in. Around 11:30 p.m., I muted the TV and noticed how quiet everything had become. Snow was falling steadily, muffling even distant highway noise. That's when I heard footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, crunching through snow outside my front door. Then came the knock. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, not rushed, not hesitant. My first thought was that it was too late for visitors. My second thought was that whoever it was already knew that and knocked anyway. I checked the peephole. It was Ron. He stood close to the door, hands at his sides, wearing that same brown coat. Snow clung to his shoulders and hair. His expression was calm, almost neutral. Relief hit me so fast it felt embarrassing. I opened the door a few inches. "Hey, Ron, everything okay?" He didn't look at me right away. His eyes drifted past me, into my apartment, like he was checking something behind my shoulder. "I locked myself out," he said finally. "Mind if I wait inside?" It's cold. Something about the way he said inside made my stomach tighten. I can't explain why. Still, he was my neighbor, an old man on Christmas Eve. Sure, I said, stepping back. He didn't move. Instead, he shook his head slightly, like he'd changed his mind. No, he said, I'll wait here. Then he turned and walked back toward his side of the duplex. I stood there for a moment longer than necessary, then closed the door, annoyed with myself for getting nervous over nothing. That should have been the end of it. 10 minutes later, I heard another knock. Not at the front door, at the back. I froze. No one ever used my back door. It faced the narrow yard behind the building, fenced in and rarely touched. When I looked through the kitchen window, I saw Ron standing in the snow, facing the door. He wasn't knocking anymore. He was just standing there. Snow had started piling on his shoulders again. He didn't brush it off. He didn't shift his weight. He didn't react when I tapped on the glass. That's when I noticed something else. Every light in his apartment was off. All of them. I called his name through the door. No response. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. My mind scrambled for explanations. Confusion. Dementia. Maybe he thought this was his place. That made sense. It felt logical. Comforting. I called the non-emergency police line. While I waited, the knocking started again. This time from my bedroom window. Soft knocks. Slow. Patient. Like someone testing glass without wanting to break it. By the time the police arrived, Ron was gone. No footsteps leading away, just one set in the snow, facing my back door, slowly filling in. One officer knocked on Ron's door. No answer. They forced it open. His apartment was empty. Not recently moved empty. Empty, empty. No furniture, no food, no clothes. Dust everywhere. Like no one had lived there in a long time. The officer checked his tablet and asked me how long I'd known Ron. "A year," I said confidently. He didn't look at me when he answered. "This unit's been vacant for 18 months. I laughed. I had to. Told him he was wrong. Told him I spoke to Ron regularly. That's when the second officer returned from the car. He looked pale. They'd checked records. Ron had died the previous winter. Christmas morning. Heart attack. In the driveway. Between our two front doors. The officers left shortly after. They said stress can do strange things. Grief. Memory. Holiday loneliness. I didn't sleep that night. At 2:14 a.m., my front door handle turned. Not violently, just enough to test it. Then I heard his voice, soft, familiar, right outside the door. "I told you I'd wait." I stayed frozen in bed until sunrise. In the morning, the snow revealed something I can't explain. 2 sets of footprints stood outside my door, one close to the threshold, the other directly behind it, facing the house, as if someone else had been standing there the entire time, watching.